Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bill Popp. I'm President and CEO of the Anchorage Economic Development Corporation. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the 2022 AEDC Economic Outlook Luncheon. We've got a very, very busy agenda today, so we're going to just get right into it. We are celebrating our 35th anniversary at AEDC, and today is an exciting day to celebrate it because we've got a lot of things to cover and a lot of interesting good news to share with you. We'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the Dena'ina people and the native village of Eklutna for their past, present, and future stewardship of their traditional homeland, which covers the municipality of Anchorage. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the chair of the AEDC Board of Directors. Steve Noble is Transportation Lead for Dowell and leads our 15-member Board of Directors who you see listed on the screen. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Mr. Steve Noble.
Welcome, everyone. It's exciting to be here today. I know it's an extremely busy time for all of us in Alaska. It's heartening to me to see all of your bright, shiny faces and to feel your energy and enthusiasm today for a vibrant Anchorage. My name's Steve Noble, and I've had the honor of being the chair of the AEDC Board of Directors for 2022 thus far. It has been quite the year. In my interactions with community leaders, there's never been a more demanding time in our professional lives. And in some ways, it's been a transitional year. We've seen Anchorage's economy, primary economic challenge shift from pandemic recovery to workforce shortages across all industries and increasing levels of out-migration. Despite these challenges, both AEDC and its board of directors are optimistic about what the future holds for Anchorage. And we are very focused on the roadmap that will lead us to where we want to be as a city. AEDC has been pushing the limits of our team to match your intensity and to not squander a good crisis. Early in 2022, we engaged TIP Strategies to perform an extensive research project into industry and workforce clusters in Anchorage, assess the impacts of the pandemic on our economy, identify imminent risks and challenges as well as opportunities for growth. Later this year, we'll share the results of their detailed analysis. Think of this as the quantitative counterpart to Roger Brooks's qualitative findings that will be shared later today. Creating a successful environment for existing businesses is one of our top priorities, and AEDC is developing the resources to expand our staff to better serve the business community. A business retention and expansion position will assist businesses with growth opportunities ranging from securing financing for new equipment and operations to infrastructure needs, with the long-term target of preserving and increasing local jobs, tax revenues, and further diversifying the local economy. A workforce development position will focus on better alignments between business needs and training providers, developing partnerships to expand workforce training and recruitment, and attracting workers with needed skills from outside Alaska. Next month, myself and others will travel with the Chamber of Commerce, Anchorage Downtown Partnership, Visit Anchorage, Anchorage Community Development Authority, the University of Alaska Center for Economic Development, and other members of the business community to the International Economic Development Council Conference in Oklahoma City. We're excited to have a large Anchorage contingent learn about Oklahoma City's redevelopment story firsthand, because we plan to use their story as both an inspiration and a blueprint for what we can apply to Anchorage. The continuous thread for this progress over the next few years will be the business community acting as a driving force and a partner to local government and community organizations that share the same vision. We're competing for workforce and residents on a national, even global scale, and we cannot afford to be complacent or to intentionally make things more difficult on ourselves. We have an ambitious vision for the future of Anchorage, and we truly believe the future we want for our city is possible. We will work to grow the number of residents in downtown Anchorage, to develop the UMed district, and to partnership with key stakeholders along the Chester Creek Greenbelt to better serve the users of the trail system. None of this can happen without your continued engagement, investment, and advocacy. So today I implore you to listen to the data, the reality of our current situation, and consider how we all can take part in creating the future we want to live, work, and play in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Deeply appreciate those comments. And now, let me introduce our next speaker, Mayor Dave Bronson. Now, Mayor Bronson has just completed his first year and a month in office, and Mayor Bronson is here today to provide an update on the municipality of Anchorage. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Anchorage Mayor Dave Bronson.
Thank you, folks. It's really good to be here with you here today. I want to thank Bill and Jenna and the team for putting this event together and giving me the invite. It's truly an honor to be here. Secondly, I'd like to thank Roger Brooks for coming back to Anchorage and sharing his wisdom with us. I'm excited to hear Roger's assessment on how to make our great city of Anchorage an even more incredible city, and how we can work together to improve the quality of life for all people, communities, and sectors. I remain committed to doing everything in my power to develop, attract, and grow businesses here in Anchorage. As business owners, I know how critical it is for you to have a robust and educated workforce, which is why we've prioritized policies that will help recruit, retain, and grow our labor force. It is imperative the future of our city to attract talent here. I think you all know that. Our economy is strongly rebounding from the effects of the pandemic, and I believe Anchorage is poised for growth in the years to come. It is my mission to remove the roadblocks you face and to make your ventures smooth, successful, and hopefully profitable. As we look to the future, I'm optimistic that our best days can yet be ahead of us. As I'm sure Roger will attest to, we have an absolutely gem of a city that is full of potential. We must work together to make Anchorage a premier city to invest in, to live in, and to travel to. Within a few blocks radius of here, we are working on nearly $300 million of potential developments, with more projects in the works. Those include the new mixed-use 6th Avenue project with apartments and a hotel, the Block 96 Flats housing project partnership between ACDA and Debenham LLC, which will be the largest in 25 years in the downtown area. And then there's the JCPenney garage redevelopment that will include an underground parking garage, mixed-use retail, and a hotel. These projects are substantial investments that will bring hotels, retail space, and much-needed housing to downtown and create hundreds of jobs in the process. Additionally, within a week or two, we will begin work at the former 4th Avenue Theater block with prospects for retail, housing, commercial space, and more. This redevelopment project, also known as the Block 41 project, has the potential to transform downtown as we know it. I know the housing market, and specifically the shortage of housing, of affordable housing here in Anchorage, is hampering development and making it hard for you to recruit talent. To this end, we are working with developers in the community to bring about more housing units. A significant and positive housing project in Girdwood is advancing to help Girdwood address its housing shortage. Furthermore, I've made it clear to developers and builders that we want to incentivize redevelopment of older and neglected neighborhoods throughout the city. I've also prioritized making unused muni land available for purchase and use to develop more housing units our city so desperately needs. This spring, I propose an ordinance to spur development of auxiliary dwelling units, or ADUs, otherwise known as mother-in-law apartments, by providing a 10-year tax exemption for homeowners who build an ADU on their own property. We want to incentivize homeowners to build ADUs to increase the supply of modern and affordable living spaces across the city. Other cities have done this with great success. Turning to the budget and taxes, we made significant progress this year on both fronts. As you know, spending drives the level of property taxes needed to be collected. After much back and forth with the Assembly, we strategically reduced spending and lowered mill rates. The budget development process has already begun for next year, and I promise to protect property taxpayers and keep government in check even as we face significant inflationary pressures. Coming into office a year ago, it quickly became apparent that saving and rebuilding and modernizing the Port of Alaska had to take top priority. With 90% of Alaskans relying on goods and food that enter through that port, and the port being at risk of collapse in an earthquake, I directed all available resources to confront this impending crisis. My team and I aggressively presented our case to the legislature and the governor and prevailed in securing state funds for the port. We received $200 million, the largest appropriation ever, to advance the rebuilding and modernization of the port. Though we didn't receive our full request of $600 million, I'm very pleased with the state's help and look forward to making further requests for assistance next session. We have worked closely with our contractor, Jacobs Engineering, to make significant progress on the design and permitting front, accelerating timelines for both design contracts being issued and construction starting for the cargo docks. In 3 weeks, construction will be complete at the new petroleum and cement terminal, providing fuel security for Alaska. The municipality also triumphed in our lawsuit against the Federal Maritime Administration, otherwise known as MARAD, that could result in winning $367 million in damages due to botched design, construction, and management failures that took place during a prior port expansion project. We should know the final settlement amount by April. Additionally, we're focused on compassionately and efficiently helping those experiencing homelessness in Anchorage. Likewise, work continues with community partners to stand up the Navigation Center and build out a network of housing options and critical mental health treatment facilities. These objectives are crucial to making Anchorage a healthier, safer, and more desirable place to live, work, and play. I want to close out by saying that what you do each day by employing thousands, feeding our city, keeping us healthy, moving products, building our homes, engineering our roads and projects, and driving innovation across the city is all essential and critical work. It's what makes us a great city. My job as mayor is to make sure you can do what you do best, which is provide the jobs and comforts we enjoy each day. I look forward to building and improving on what Roger presents today and tomorrow. In Anchorage, I am confident that we will get there together. Thank you again, Bill, for this opportunity, and thank you for your team for putting this together. It was my honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Bronson. Our next speaker is University of Alaska President Pat Pitney. UAA is a critical resource for providing Anchorage employers with skilled workers. President Pitney is here today to share her views on the future of the University of Alaska and the UAA campus. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage University of Alaska President Pat Pitney.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Bill, for inviting me to be here today. And I have over here some members of our Board of Regents and our trustees, and we thank you for your leadership of our institution. I also want to recognize we have leaders from UAA here, and you are going to be hearing from those leaders throughout the fall and spring, where they're bringing UAA's message to each of you in the various settings throughout Anchorage to re-engage with all of you. And so I'm excited that they're all here today and take the opportunity. Whether you're an employer, a parent, a sports fan, or a foodie, UAA is an integral part of this city's life. The UA system as a whole contributes to all of your businesses as well. Let's just talk about travel. All of you, I know, use Alaska Airlines. UAA specifically trains over 125 pilots, aviation mechanics, air traffic controllers, and aviation administrators every year. That's just out of one program. And most of you, if I asked, wouldn't even think about UAA and pilots. You wouldn't think about aviation mechanics and UAA. It is workforce development writ large, from the 1- and 2-year certificate programs all the way through master's and most recently doctorates in nursing. On the engineering side, collectively across the system, we have over 200 engineers produced every year. Just between Anchorage and ConocoPhillips. ConocoPhillips has 105 Anchorage graduates. 35 of those are engineers. And I want to give a shout out for the the ANCEP program here at UAA, where a lot of those engineers are Alaska Native through their support. Our health programs are so critical to Anchorage and our entire state, and UAA is our health workforce leader. This year, just among nurses, over 200 have graduated. That doesn't count medical assistants, X-ray technicians, medical records assistants, occupational therapists, and the like. All of these healthcare workers support our industry. And thank you to the legislature and the governor this year. For the first time in 8 years, the university is on stable funding, a goal of mine since I've walked in the door. And they've provided funding to expand our healthcare workforce programs. So we're going to see more nurses, more X-ray technicians. We have to support our own. The cost of travelers into our community is so extensive. Right now, there's 6,000 openings in the healthcare arena. Together, every provider of healthcare workforce, we can't do enough. So encourage that. Finance sector, I see McKinley Capital over here is a good partner. First National Bank's been a good partner. Widener Group, all of them are invested in our College of Business and Public Policy, and I see Dean Nossinger over here, and you'll be seeing a lot more of Dean Nossinger in this coming fall. Our research also fuels Alaska's economy. In mining, for example, right here at UAA, you wouldn't think this, but the biology department, faculty and students are perfecting extraction processes that will pull rare earths out of coal. The Center for Economic Development, in partnership with the Department of Commerce, just released the draft Comprehensive Economic Development Study. It calls out mining as a growth industry. By 2030, we could have 7,000 jobs in the mining industry because of critical minerals. Later this month, we'll be convening a summit in Fairbanks. Alaska's minerals, a strategic national imperative. We'll bring together national leaders, state leaders, researchers, and industry partners. And we're going to focus on the nation's security and how dependent our national economic security is to the resources in Alaska, and that we must mine our resources if we want to get to that new economy. In addition to mining, we're developing a drones industry. And what does that mean? Alaska is positioned to be the first state to have commercial industry in unmanned aerial vehicles. So that's transportation to villages, transportation to mines. Let's start with cargo. Not really excited about people quite yet in an unmanned aerial vehicle, but we could see this in 3 years. Monitoring the pipeline, fish and game counts, fire protection, search and rescue. Well, let's talk about search first and dropping supplies. But we are positioned as Alaska can lead the nation on this. And again, thanks to the governor and legislature for support. Exciting development in tourism. We're partnering with ATIA on a joint TikTok marketing campaign. So, how many here are on TikTok? Okay. I am also not on TikTok. So, everybody, It's the new thing, apparently. But we'll be highlighting Alaska. You know, a final highlight is our emphasis on innovation and entrepreneurship. The Business Enterprise Institute works to create jobs, fosters innovation, mentors future innovators, and partners in developing your economy. Our future and all of yours rests on the opportunity to build our workforce. Alaska needs more workers and qualified workers. Every one of you want to hire skilled and qualified Alaskans. They graduate from UAA and the other UA system campuses. Parents want high-quality, affordable higher education for their children. Current workers want to upskill to increase their earnings. Anchorage residents want to live in a prosperous community supported by a top-notch university. Every student, rich or struggling, native, black, white, or immigrant, wants a path to success. You'll find it within the UA system and at UAA. In the 1980s, when Alaska was struggling for enough workers, and I think all of you out there realize we need more workers, 6,000 in the healthcare arena. Every business person I've talked to is like, we need accountants, we need finance people, we need teachers. In the 1980s, when we were struggling, the state and the university partnered to attract more workers through student loan forgiveness. We have to go back to those times and think about that. Our shortage is not minor, and it is not short-term. We need to start attracting people back to Alaska, and we need to keep our best and brightest here. So let's think about that. And I really want to thank all of you for your support. We've had 18,000 people have donated to our For Alaska campaign. And I can see many of you here in this room who've been part of that. And so thank you for those generous donations. A diverse, educated workforce makes a resilient Alaska that's open for business. I leave you with one final thought. Your university empowers Alaska. Opportunity, independence, innovation. This is core to a thriving Alaska. And thank you again for this opportunity and your support of UAA and our entire system. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, President Pitney. We deeply appreciate that presentation. And now it is time to present the AEDC three-year economic outlook for the Anchorage economy. Now, today's presentation will include data and perspectives from the AEDC three-year outlook report, the AEDC monthly employment report, the second quarter Anchorage Consumer Optimism Index, and the AEDC second quarter Anchorage Real-Time Jobs Demand Report. Please note that all of these reports today, presented today, are available for your review and download at aedcweb.com. Our thanks again to North Rim Bank as the sponsor of the AEDC three-year outlook report and presentation. I'll be covering a lot of ground today in today's 25-minute presentation of the three-year outlook report. There's a lot of data and information in the report that will go beyond the time we have for today. So we will be also releasing a series of video overviews of the report next week. Watch for the announcement as soon as the links are posted on our website, and these are generously sponsored by McKinley McKinley Research and the McKinley family of companies, as well as North Rim Bank. The research and development of the AEDC 2022 three-year outlook report was performed by our long-standing research partner, McKinley Research Group. In fact, this report was developed in partnership with McKinley Research 15 years ago when they were known as McDowell Group. AEDC deeply appreciates the dedication and hard work of McKinley Research in putting together much of the information you are about to receive. So let's begin. As our chair, Steve Noble, noted, AEDC is optimistic about the future of Anchorage in the coming years. We see job growth on the horizon, new investments lining up for our city, and opportunities in several industries for expansion. There is much to be excited about for the future of Anchorage, but we have our challenges that we have to be cognizant of as we march into this future of success. We begin our dive into the Anchorage economy and its future with population. Since 2013, Anchorage has lost 13,600 citizens, a 4% decline from our record high point of just over 302,000. The population trends in our city over the last several decades are a complex mix of births, deaths, in-migration, and out-migration. Historically, prior to 2013, we might see a couple of years in a row of net population losses, mainly due to net out-migration. Net migration is a key driver of our population trends. Every year, tens of thousands of people move to and from Anchorage and Alaska. Some of the migration to and from Anchorage is to in-state destinations like the Matsu Borough, but most of the migration is between Anchorage and the lower 48. You'll note the 5 states listed as the top destinations Alaskans were moving to in the lower 48 in 2020. They were Washington, Texas, California, Florida, and Arizona. Nearly 17,000 Alaskans moved to these 5 states in 2020, and Anchorage likely accounted for most of them. Now, is losing 4% of our population over an 8-year period a big deal? We at AEDC think it is. Let's look at why we are concerned. While Anchorage lost 13,000 from our net population since 2013, our city lost 15,000 working age adults between 2015 and 2021. These are 18 to 64-year-old individuals. A big driver of this trend has been the net out-migration losses in the overall population. The lower 48 economy was red hot from 2015 to early 2020 before COVID, while Anchorage and Alaska were in the longest recession our state had seen in decades. People were leaving our city and state to look for work. Another part of this loss of working age adults can be attributed to the surge of retirements that we are seeing in the baby boom generation over the last decade. And that trend is about to go into high gear. Nationally, the last 41 million baby boomers out of the original 78 million under retirement age will reach full retirement age by 2030. 41 million out of the workforce nationally in just 7 years. And there are not anywhere near enough workers in the pipeline to replace this growing hole in the national labor force. Anchorage is not immune from this trend. And a final factor that we couldn't previously define well has just seen new data from the U.S. Census Bureau released last week that tells us that 34% of our 16 to 26-year-old population has been leaving our state for the lower 48. The data suggests this is a permanent move, not just a temporary move to go to college or other life adventures. Why is this loss of working age adults so important? The Anchorage labor force is where the rubber meets the road when it comes to job growth. How skilled is our labor force? What are its demographics? Do we have the skilled and available workforce that current employers need and new employers will require? Current trends are telling us we have a problem that needs our immediate attention. In the period from 2014 to 2019, Anchorage saw a decline of 9,000 workers from our labor force, a 4.4% decline. While this may seem of no real consequence, I'll demonstrate in the next couple of minutes that it is an issue that is creating serious headwinds for the ongoing recovery of the Anchorage economy. First, practically every employer in Anchorage has jobs open that are going unfilled for lack of qualified candidates, or in many cases, lack of any applicants for the job. More on that in a moment. I'd like to take this moment to dispel the many myths that I've been hearing that seem to be making the rounds. No, there are not thousands of workers sitting at home playing video games or watching TV rather than going to work because of government subsidies or unemployment benefits. Anchorage currently has a 79% labor force participation rate. There are those who are staying home because of a serious lack of affordable and available daycare, and there are those who are staying home for health reasons related to COVID. Our labor market is adjusting to the best of its ability to deal with the significant shortage of workers available to fill the jobs. 77% of the jobs in Anchorage are filled by local citizens. To fill the gap, employers have hired 11% of current workers from outside of Anchorage, mainly from the Mat-Su borough. The remaining 12% of workers currently employed in Anchorage come to work from the lower 48. Now, just how big is the gap between workforce and job demand? Well, let's look at the latest data from the AEDC second quarter real-time jobs posting report, generously sponsored by KeyBank. This report uses proprietary research tools of JobsEQ that scrapes employer job postings from the internet, deduplicates those postings, and refines the information into the data that I'm about to present. In the second quarter of this year, the Anchorage Mat-Su region, in a 3-month period, saw nearly 31,000 active, ongoing, and new job postings in that 3-month period. Over 4,600 employers posted these jobs that represent a broad range in in-demand skills and occupations. This was a record quarter for job postings since we launched the report in 2018. And you can see by the top 10 employers posting jobs, the healthcare, government, and education sectors have a lot to offer in the way of job demand to would-be workers. An additional perspective from this report, AEDC compared the first 6 months of new job postings, posted for the first time, in the years 2018 through 2022. 2022 blew the roof off with a 75% increase in new job postings during the first 6 months of the year, compared to the average for the same period in the previous 4 years. And while that is an amazingly good piece of news for all of us, as it shows just how strong the recovery is becoming, the challenge is that we have averaged only 9,200 reported unemployed workers actively seeking work in Anchorage and Mat-Su during this same 6-month period on a monthly basis in 2022. Our labor pool is shrinking while demand is growing. It is great for workers, absolutely fantastic for workers, but tough for employers and the overall economy's prospects for stronger growth. So how are the job numbers in Anchorage doing so far in 2022? In the first 6 months of 2022, Anchorage has added an average of 5,000 jobs, a very strong 3.6% growth based on the preliminary jobs data. Really, really good news. Big winners in this data include the leisure and hospitality, transportation, professional, construction, and retail sectors. Sectors still seeing negative job growth include healthcare, state government, and oil and gas, though the oil and gas sector saw modest gains of 100 new jobs added over the last couple of months, and these are Anchorage-based jobs. Overall, this is really great news for the Anchorage economy and Anchorage workers. It really is. It is really fantastic news. If you are unemployed, you have more job options available to apply for in most sectors of the economy than at any time in decades. This should mean that local citizens should be feeling really good about the economy and its future, right? Well, maybe not so much. The just completed AEDC second quarter Anchorage Consumer Optimism Index, compiled by Alaska Survey Research using the Northern Economics Survey model, shows that Anchorage consumers are still modestly pessimistic about the overall economy. On a scale of 1 to 100, with scores above 50 leaning optimistic and scores below 50 leaning to pessimistic, the second quarter ANCI shows a score of 43.3, showing Anchorage consumers still leaning pessimistic at practically the same level seen in the first quarter survey of 2022. For the 3 elements that make up the overall confidence index number, confidence in the local economy remains in the we're not sure range between 45 and 55. Personal financial confidence improves slightly and is just inside the optimistic range. But future expectations for the Anchorage economy remain markedly not optimistic. Issues like record high inflation rates, sky-high gasoline and diesel prices, supply chain disruptions, news stories in the media about how bad things are, businesses closing for part of the week due to the lack of workforce, and other issues contribute to this negative perspective. We are hopeful that consumer optimism will improve in the coming months as the economy continues to recover from COVID and the recession that preceded it. Now let's take a look at more news from other aspects of the Anchorage economy, starting with personal income. Personal income is a key measure of personal wealth. If the outlook for this indicator is one of growth, this bodes well for our services-based economy. I'm pleased to note that AEDC believes the next several years will see modest growth in personal income. Growth in wages, increased government transfers, spending in infrastructure, a large PFD in September, and other influences are all contributors to our outlook for modest growth in personal income. We're hopeful that this increase in personal wealth will help return a sense of improved optimism to Anchorage consumers. Now, another area of the Anchorage economy AEDC is excited about is the solid growth we are seeing at Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport. Let's first look at the passenger side of operations at the airport. 2021 saw a solid rebound in passenger enplanement numbers for the airport, and 2022 is carrying that positive trend forward. With solid passenger numbers of 1.8 million in the first 5 months of 2022, AEDC projects total passenger counts to exceed 5.4 million this year. And within the next 3 years, we believe the airport could set a new record for total passenger numbers by 2025. Tourism is the key driver of this trend, with business and leisure travel also improving and contributing. New direct routes to domestic and international destinations have been added this year, and we expect more to be added in the coming years as the baby boom generation moves more into retirement and going on that trip of a lifetime to Alaska. Turning to cargo operations at the airport, this is an even better news piece to report. Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport is now the 4th busiest cargo airport by total cargo volume in the world, setting a new record for 2021 with over 4 million tons of cargo moving through the airport. With expectations are that 2022 will equal that performance. And the outlook for the next 3 years is even brighter, with a new record tonnage total possible by 2024. Additionally, over $1 billion in new cargo-related facilities projects are in various stages of development for the airport. Each of these projects proposed represents hundreds of new construction and operations jobs for the Anchorage economy and hundreds of millions of dollars each in expenditures. The airport will likely be a key driver of thousands of new jobs and hundreds of millions in new investment in Anchorage over the next several years. Now turning to an important part of Anchorage and Alaska's economic infrastructure, the Port of Alaska is seeing solid growth in tonnage totals thanks to the significant increase in demand for jet fuel at the airport, with most of that fuel being delivered via tankers docking at the Port of Alaska. Fees charged at the docks of the Port of Alaska help support operations and the jobs at the port. And the eventual reconstruction of the main dock and related infrastructure at the port will create hundreds of construction jobs when that construction moves forward. Those improvements will also assure the continued efficient delivery of consumer goods, construction materials, equipment, and everything else that makes our economy work. And not just for Anchorage, but for all of mainland Alaska. Building permits are a significant indicator of intent by developers, investors, businesses, and homeowners to spend on new investments that drive other sectors like construction, professional services, and consumer sectors like retail. On the face of recent building permits data, one would think that project spending was on the rise. While the number of permits did go up in 2021, the current rise in permit values in 2022 is being driven more by rising costs for construction materials and the rising costs for delivering those materials to Alaska. Actual numbers of permits are not rising significantly yet this year. However, AEDC believes that the coming 3 years will see a rise in the number of permits as well as the values as demands for new housing developments, increased investments by businesses, and potential new investments from the government sector will drive values up modestly. It should be noted that the federal transportation bill that will bring an estimated $5 billion in new construction spending to Alaska and Anchorage over the next 5 years will be mainly for civil construction projects. Roads and transportation projects such as the airport will be major beneficiaries of this funding, much to the benefit of the Anchorage economy. But these projects will mostly not require building permits that show up in the building permit values and will not be part of this indicator in the coming years. Now, another important aspect of the economy related to building permits is the Anchorage housing market. So let's take a quick look at the current situation in single-family homes. Using MLS data, the value of the average home sold in Anchorage in 2021 rose by 7%. And AEDC projects that average sale price will rise by another 6% in 2022. Low inventories are a significant driver of this price trend. There just aren't a lot of homes in the for sale inventory in 2021, and we expect this tight inventory to loosen only modestly in 2022. Yet sales still remain strong in 2022, with 1,389 units sold year to date, making the first 6 months of 2022 the second best sales year in the last several decades. It's still a seller's market and likely will remain so for the rest of 2022 and into 2023. Now, while the housing construction industry has begun to construct more homes, the increase is modest. AEDC projects that 500 new homes will be completed in Anchorage in 2022, an increase of 122 over the previous year. The Mat-Su borough continues to be the center of new home construction in the region and will likely continue to be so for the foreseeable future, further contributing to the growth of non-resident workers holding jobs in Anchorage. The biggest success story for the Anchorage economy in 2022 is the visitor industry. This sector leads job growth in our city, adding over 2,600 jobs so far in 2022. Hotels are packed and rates are way up. Convention bookings are rebounding solidly. Passenger numbers at the airport are nearly at pre-pandemic levels, all in the face of a relentless shortage of workers to fill hundreds of jobs going vacant for lack of workers. Cruise ship passengers and independent travelers are filling our streets, our businesses, our restaurants, and generating significant tax revenues for our community. This is an industry on an amazing rebound from the depths of the disaster that was 2020. While we don't project the future of this industry, our outlook for the tourism sector is very bright. Turning to our final set of indicators, let's look at the oil and gas sector. As a foundational pillar of the Anchorage and Alaska economy, past, present, and future, the oil and gas sector employs thousands of workers in high-paying jobs and provides billions of dollars in tax revenues to the federal, state, and local government. Anchorage benefits from the hundreds of jobs located in our city, as well as from the paychecks deposited in our local banks and credit unions by oil and gas workers who live here and commute to work on the North Slope or in Cook Inlet. AEDC tracks two key indicators to monitor the health and direction of the oil and gas industry: the price of a barrel of oil and the volume of the oil produced from the North Slope oil fields. Now, while we've had a fairly good batting average, I'm still shocked at this, fairly good batting average at projecting oil prices, we've had our misses, such as the oil price collapse in 2015-16 and the oil price collapse caused by the COVID pandemic in 2020. So I caution you all that our forecasts, like any commodities forecast, are subject to any number of factors that can't be anticipated. Please do not bet your retirement fund on our forecast. Using a blend of different market and government sources, AEDC projects the average price of ANS crude will reach $108 a barrel in 2022. That's the average price, with a steady decline over the next 3 years to $81 a barrel in 2025. The projection for future volumes are also looking good based on the state of Alaska projections noted in this production forecast. Will this outlook for good prices combined with increased production mean more investment in Alaska? We are hopeful that will be the case. The Santos Pickup project is one such investment we hope will move forward with billions of dollars of investment and thousands of jobs that will result. The ConocoPhillips Willow project is another project we are very hopeful will ultimately move forward with similar billions in spending and thousands of jobs resulting. The oil and gas industry is evolving due to new forces influencing its direction and success. The drive towards widespread deployment of renewable energy projects, the auto industry drive towards conversion to all-electric vehicle production, and other factors like constraints of changing investment markets and increasing environmental regulatory pressures are clouding the outlook for this important industry. This is an industry that will continue to be a key pillar of the Alaska economy and will require the active and engaged involvement of the business community in the coming years. So now we reach the final topic of today's forecast, the 3-year outlook for jobs in Anchorage. First, AEDC is very optimistic for the jobs outlook in Anchorage. We base this optimism on the fact that so far in 2022, we have 2 to 3 times as many jobs being posted than available workers in our city. This is an amazing turn of events given the several years of recession that we were in before COVID, And the recession and COVID cost our economy over 18,000 jobs, a true gut punch to our economy. But the rebound this year has been nothing short of amazing. With Anchorage seeing 5,000 new jobs in the first 6 months of 2022, AEDC is revising its forecast that we put up in March for 2022, up 1,000 jobs to 3,400 jobs added by the end of this year. And our outlook for the next 3 years will add another 4,500 jobs by the end of 2025. Now, this still leaves us down 4,700 jobs from full recovery and from the recession and COVID. But we are definitely headed in the right direction. This is really, really good news. You may be asking right now why AEDC isn't more bullish about even more jobs being added sooner and full recovery being achieved sooner. Well, it's all about the bodies, or lack thereof. As I shared earlier in this presentation, overall labor force and population trends are the big issues facing our economy for the coming decade and beyond. This is not a transient 1 or 2 year situation. We are going to be dealing with this for the foreseeable future. These issues we are facing every other city and town in the country. No city is immune from this national labor force shortage. The baby boomers just didn't have enough babies. And our country is now facing the reality of our demographics. What will matter is addressing this challenge what will matter in addressing this challenge is how we as a city play the game to win the coming decades-long competition for workers. We are behind many other cities in the lower 48 who have been upping their game over the last several years in their efforts to attract and retain workforce. They've done this through a broad range of investments in quality of place projects, including housing, public safety, education, and many other aspects of their city that are now making them magnets for attracting and retaining workforce. AEDC has been watching our competition closely for over a decade and reporting on it and how they are succeeding in their efforts. As our chair, Steve Noble, mentioned earlier, AEDC has organized a delegation that will travel to Oklahoma City in September to learn how this once desolate boom and bust city that was eroding in the face of the same forces Anchorage now faces turned itself around and is now a vibrant and growing city that retains 72% of its young adult workers and has become a major destination for conferences and tourism. Yes, Oklahoma City for tourism. I want you to think about that. And has a growing tech sector that is expanding every year. We want to learn from our competitors so that we can win the talent war that we face. So here are a few questions for all of us as citizens of Anchorage to answer. To assure that Anchorage can grow its economy over the next decade and beyond, what strategies are we willing to develop and invest in to grow our labor force? What are we willing to do to keep more locally grown workers here in our city? And what are we willing to do to attract the thousands of workers we need now and in the future that we can't grow locally? This is the big issue we are now faced with as a city. Our future success as a city will be driven by what we decide to do. So let's end this all on a bright and positive note. Anchorage is by no means the worst city in America, and if you took that away from my presentation, you are sorely mistaken. We are far from that, and not just because I say so or we say so. Last week, AEDC was contacted by the editors of the highly regarded Livability, a website and publication that provides tools for people looking to find that town that fits their needs and expectations that is a perfect fit to move to. They wanted to let us know that Anchorage was part of a months-long ranking process for choosing the best 100 mid-sized cities in America to live, under 500,000 people. After researching over 2,300 cities for consideration in the 2022 Top 100, we were informed that Anchorage was ranked 23rd best mid-sized city in America to live. Now, we have as you look at the screen, we have some solid strengths in economy, transportation, and amenities like our outdoors. But our weaknesses were in social and civic capital and especially in housing. In the end, we are competitive. We have our problems and our challenges, but we can overcome them. We've done it before. You remember doing that, right? We have every reason to be optimistic about our future. This concludes the 3-year outlook presentation. Again, all the AEDC reports can be found on our website, aedcweb.com. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your attention. It's now my great pleasure to introduce today's keynote speaker, Mr. Roger Brooks.
So we're going to have some fun for the next 45 minutes or so. And I got to tell you, when we were here in 2019, you know, how little did we know that just 7 months later, our world would be tipped upside down. And it takes me back to, you know, this slide that I got, one of my favorite movies. Yep, Marty, whatever happens, don't ever go to 2020. Matter of fact, over this pandemic, we ended up with a whole new set of lingo. Zooming and zoomed out and digital nomads and shutdowns. And I mean, look at all this. I mean, the Merriam-Webster dictionary folks have been busy trying to figure out which ones do we need to add to all of this. PPE, quarantines, isolation. My favorite one is super spreader events or the super spreader in chief. I mean, we just learned a lot. And at the end of all of that, you know, it's time for a quarantini. Yep, we even invented new drinks out of this. But now that we have finally come out of this, and a lot of our retirements have been delayed by a couple of years, it is now the time to reboot, reimagine, reinvest, and reinvent. So in 2019, when I was here, we talked a lot about downtown. We were actually here for more than just the keynote. My wife and I were here for like 5 or 6 days, and we really got to see downtown. But this time, as Bill just mentioned, we did a deep dive into Anchorage. And when we do that, we call it a destination assessment. And you may say, well, what is a destination assessment? We spent 2 good weeks, a photographic look at Anchorage through the eyes of a visitor. And so tomorrow particularly, I'm going to give you one of these today, but tomorrow you're going to see photographically what we saw, you know, what we thought. And for every shortcoming, we'll offer a low-cost solution. So we have been secret shopping you. This time we were here in the winter for a good week. This time we were here, it's already been a week and we're here for several more days. And by the way, when we do this, it's not just as a leisure visitor. We actually looked through this wearing different hats, you know, as a place to live. Would we want to live here? Would we relocate here? You know, secondly, is this a place we would want to work? You know, or would it be a place to invest in or relocate a business? You know, what would we think as site selectors? And I've actually done a lot of site selection in my career. So all of these people, they're coming here first as what? Visitors. Is this a place they'd want to go? Their clients would want to go. So we have to wear that hat as well. And then finally, is this a place that I would want to work in because the quality of life is so good? And in Anchorage, as you know, you have to pay more to live here. Well, is it worth that extra cost? So we had to look at that as well, or even as a place to start a new small business. So I had to wear all these hats, and then, of course, as a leisure visitor. Now, with this, we took a look at everything. You know, just like, by the way, we didn't ask Bill, you know, or Visit Anchorage or the downtown part. We didn't ask for any input. We came here like 99% of other people. We have to find it on our own. We'll go online. We'll do all of those things. And that is a destination assessment. And our findings are what we saw, what we experienced, what we loved, things that could use some help. And then there'll be lots of suggestions. And by the way, there's no recommendations because we secret shopped you. I always feel like it would be a little bit, you know, for us to tell you what you should do before we even consulted with you about those. And so that's how important this hall is. But you will see things through photographic examples. So with this, it's 100% about Anchorage, what we saw, what we did. By the way, when it comes to doing these assessments, we have actually done nearly 2,300 communities over the last 40 years. We have done assessments in 40 plus states, every province in Canada, Western Europe, Scandinavia, down in Africa, been on the road a lot. And by the way, with this assessment, what you're going to see today and what you'll see tomorrow, there is no saying, well, you should have. There's no looking back. Remember, we're coming here like a first-time visitor, and all we're doing is say, well, what could we do to make it even better? So there's no shame on you for this or any looking in the rearview mirror. There may be things that you're already working on, and you say, well, Roger, we're already working on it. Well, remember, nobody told us things, and if that's the case, you have been validated. And so the entire focus is, what can you do to make Anchorage even better? And this will, I guarantee it'll pump people up. Even though sometimes we call the kettle black, you know, it's usually, this is all about, yeah, can we get people pumped up and excited? And as you know, they say the expert always has to live somewhere else. So there's nothing like living in Phoenix and coming to Anchorage in January. Now in Phoenix, when it hits 70 degrees, we pull out the parkas. So that was pretty fun and pretty much of a shock to the system. But while we were here, we had to answer several puzzles, like where are all these places, like Midtown. As a matter of fact, I asked Bill, I said, Anchorage is so huge, how are we gonna narrow this down? I mean, it's all over. He says, well, I want you to check out Midtown, check out Ships Creek, Mountain View, Eagle River, Girdwood, and I want you to do South Anchorage and West Anchorage and East Anchorage, and then the Muldoon area. And by the time we were done, I'm going, well, that's about the size of Connecticut. But we've done it. We've logged a lot of miles. Avis is not going to be very happy with us. But we had to figure out where these are. And then number two, how do we find all these places? The ones you see coming up right now on your screen. One of the things you're really lacking is wayfinding. Yeah, better wayfinding, getting us from the street level up to this room than you have in the rest of Anchorage. And so we had to find all these. That was another puzzle. And then another one is, where would we live if we came here? Remember, we're trying to wear these multiple hats. So what are the schools like? What are the local parks like? Local markets? All of these things. And then finally, what could make Anchorage even better? You know, is it beautification? You're going to see that tomorrow. Wayfinding, you're going to see that today. Blade signs, we'll explain that. Public assembly spaces, activities versus events. Curb appeal, on and on. All of these things are a part of this. So now, the big question is, how do you measure up? How do you measure up to the competition? So I want to talk about millennials just for a second, because believe it or not, there are more millennials than there are boomers. And they are pretty much in their 30s. So all of these organizations you see coming up on your screen did some research to find out, what do people want in their 30s and in their 40s. So these are the youngest Gen Xers and the millennial generation. And this is in order of importance. What are your priorities if you're looking for a place to put down roots? And this has really changed everything, because in past generations, number one was jobs. You're going to see where jobs are in the millennial list. But number one, they want safety, particularly for kids. Okay? And you know what they're looking for and what they're finding on the web. Now, one thing about millennials, the boomers, we were having kids in our early 20s. Millennials are having their kids in their late 30s, early 40s. And so they're right now in that age. They're thinking about family. Number one was safety, particularly for kids. Number 2 on their list was a good educational system and childcare. Remember, this is in order of importance to them. They want a young population. They want peer groups. Include things like libraries, family amenities, parks, medical clinics, all of those things. Number 3 is top-notch recreation. And guess what? You own it for North America. You do. And so you've got it, but it's also the sports fields and the sports facilities, which you also do great at. And then they want affordability and quality. They don't want just cheap. They also want it to be quality. So that one there is a little one that you're a little bit challenged with, but is it worth it? And that could be move-up homes, starter homes. And by the way, the people moving into downtowns are not millennials. They want the backyard. They want kids that can go out and ride their bikes down the street. It's the boomers that are moving into downtowns that are empty nesters and don't want the maintenance of a house or a yard. So that's a little different than most common thinking. Number 5 on their list is health, particularly for kids. So once again, healthcare, all of those things. An engaged community, a sense of belonging. The millennials are the most civically minded group in U.S. history. I mean, heck, I'm from the boomer age, where we were down with the establishment. Somehow we became the establishment and really screwed it up. But they want to be engaged, and that is where downtown comes in. Number 7 on their list is cultural depth. The visual, the performing arts, education, food, and you own that too. But where's that? Downtown. Number 8 on their list is life after 6 o'clock, Anchorage. Now, granted, this time of year, you got it, particularly with your food scene. But they do want that, and they're not just talking about the bar scene. They want those sidewalk cafes. They want those activities. And look here's number 9, a way to make a living. Number 9 out of 10. If you can provide such an exceptional quality of life, and I'll give you a good example. Ashland, Oregon, population 20,000, home of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, where people pay a third more to live there, they make a third less. But they do it because the quality of life is so high, they're willing to pay more and make less. Now here, your pay is good, the job opportunities are here. There's no reason why you can't attract this huge group of people. And then number 10 is transportation. Bike lanes, rideshare, school transit systems, buses, your trail systems. Matter of fact, you have these. I would recommend starting to create posters and dedicated website that says, here's how we stack up. And livability.com really reinforced that for you, as Bill was talking about. So, one thing you need to know in economic development, for the first time in American history, and I said this in 2019, it's still true in 2022, jobs are going where the talent is or where the talent wants to be. So the whole goal is, how do we get it so the talent wants to be in Anchorage? As a matter of fact, amenity migration is now replacing job migration. Those first 8 things. And that's where we're at. So back to this assessment. So now I'm going to switch gears. And you see all of these things coming up on your screen right now. These are the things they're looking for. You've got these. You've got to tell the world. And so let's do a little sneak peek. Now, in tomorrow's presentation, I'm going to go over 7 initiatives. I'm going to give you 1 today. But winter, summer, we are here in January. That's what the visitor center looked like in January. And this is it this last week. Huge difference. And I think it was really important to see Anchorage in the winter so we know how you live, what it's like. And then, of course, we've been spending time in Anchorage. In both the winter and the summer, the very first thing we did was head over to visitor information. You have to understand that tourism is the front door to your non-tourism economic development. Site selectors, anybody coming here, investors, they're coming here first as what? Visitors. And so we started there, both in the winter and this time of year. And of course, we had this big, huge list that we had started. That was the only input we got. So the first thing we did is we did pick up your visitor guide. So even if we're not here as a leisure visitor, people are going to still pick this up. The first thing we had to do is figure out where are all these places on this list. So we pulled up a map and I said, well, I'm guessing that this area would be West Anchorage. I mean, we're just trying to guess. Maybe that is South Anchorage. You know, I think 100th was about as far down. We thought maybe 100th up to about 50th. I don't know. And then we have like East Anchorage. So we're trying to guess because you don't have well-defined districts anywhere. And we can find the Midtown Mall and go, we're there. And then, you know, Eagle River, Mountain View, North Anchorage. And then we figured, you know, then of course we got downtown and not a problem there because we're staying at the Hotel Captain Cook and really appreciate them. They've been our host for all of our trips here. They've been great. And we figured out whatever else is left over must be Midtown. So now we spent, you know, we figured Midtown must be in the 30 blocks, you know, the 35ths and all of those. You know, so we sort of figured this out. And by the way, see that? These are just suggestions. You need to identify your districts a little bit better. Now, back to this visitor guide. I have to tell you that having worked and keynoted at most state tourism conferences across the country, this is one of the best guides in the entire United States. And nobody put me up to that. It really is that good. I love the fact it even starts out by Anchorage by seasons, which says, guess what? We're open 12 months a year, not just 3 months. I thought that was excellent. But it also has it by, are you traveling by family? They tell it by experience. Are you interested in glaciers? Are you interested in the fishing? Or the Chugat, you know, I'm going to get it right sooner or later. The mountains, right next to you. The national parks, you know, adventure. Is that what you're looking for? History, culture, parks, trails, and it goes on. It does it by experience, which is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, they do a great job, wildlife. And so that was a great guide. They even do day trips, and day tours for you. Now, not only did we do that, we used, I think it was, we used this guide. And by the way, this is $5.99. It was best $6 ever. And we went out there with Lynn and Angie. And it's a guide that we start at the visitor center. It tells you about the historic city hall right next door. And everywhere you walk, it tells you about the history and everything. Excellent. Those two pieces were our guide. So we used those. We came up with 7 initiatives, and I'm just going to share initiative number 2 with you today and right now. And this is wayfinding. And this is because, you know, we were trying to find places and we'd arrive and we'd go, okay, I think this is right, but I'm not going to get out there and scrape off that sign. But what happened is in the winter, we spent most of the winter week trying to figure out where stuff was. That made it really easy when we came back in the summer. But you know what? About 99% of visitors don't get to do that twice. You know, and so by the time we got back, we knew here's that same map. We knew that Kincaid Park is over here, the airport's over Lake Hood, Winchester Lagoon. So we kind of figured out where things were so that when we came back in the summer, we wouldn't be driving all over. Because before we said, well, we got to go see Earthquake Park, and then we got to go over to, the locals kept telling us to go to Flat Top. Well, we didn't know that they're, you know, on opposite sides of a space the size of Connecticut. And so we did this. And then you're going to see through this little presentation, number 15. I'm not giving you 1 through 14. You have to come here tomorrow for that. Or actually at the Hotel Captain Cook for that. But benefits of wayfinding. It becomes a better visitor experience. Help us find things. Visitors will learn what you have to offer and how to find it. You know, when we use navigation systems, we'll say Siri or Google Maps, tell us how to get to Glen Elms Trailhead. Things we already know. But on signs, you might have things listed we didn't even know you had. So navigation systems are not a substitute. It will increase your visitor spending dramatically. If we could see all the things you have, and you can't put them all on every sign, but everywhere we go, we see there's more over here, there's more over here. It's going to keep people coming back again and again. And that is the power of wayfinding. It will mitigate traffic flow. You can tell us how you want us to drive, where you want us to drive. And then it will increase the desire to live in Anchorage because you created a better experience. I mean, these are wayfinding signs you see here that I just took in Logan, Utah. You know, here it is in Modesto, California. You never have more than 5 items on a sign, so it always has to be progressive. I mean, this is Greenville, South Carolina. This is Woodlands, Texas. This is all wayfinding, and those are vehicular wayfinding. But even in your downtown, you need to better identify your districts downtown, the Musher District, the Arts District, whatever you have that's downtown. Where are these? Where do they start and end, and what's in them? I mean, Disney's the perfect example of wayfinding. And so you need to do that. And there, once again, do not tell me that navigations are a substitute, because it's not. Matter of fact, we experienced that. We tried to find Flat Top because the logo says you got to go to Flat Top. So the first thing it did, it says it was like half a mile away from our hotel, which took us right over to the restaurant about a block from here. Then we said, okay, it must be called something else. Let's go to Flat Top Park. So it took us across the city, up these little narrow roads. We were on dirt roads where we saw warning signs about don't come up here with any vehicles, you know, and we saw that. That wasn't it. We eventually found it, but we had to stop, pull over, look up Flat Top, and then we found that we were asking the wrong thing because Google and Siri or Apple Maps had no clue what Flat Top was. A residential subdivision. When we finally discovered it's actually called Glen Elms Trailhead, but the locals call it Flat Top, then we were able to find it. See, that's why you need navigation systems. And by the way, you have good directional signs. They start when we're about a block away from whatever it is we're trying to find. Kincaid Park, 1 block. Oh, thanks. You know? So it would include vehicular wayfinding, your attractions, your amenities, parking, visitor information, pedestrian wayfinding when we're downtown because there's so much more to explore. I mean, trail signage and markers. You're going to see that. 24/7 visitor information. We want things to work even when you're closed. We want to be able to grab brochures. You know, I mean, this is pedestrian wayfinding. You need that in your downtown so we can find these things. You know, little things like Disney's really does a smart thing. They even tell you where to find ATMs. Good idea, downtown. We're here to spend money. Help us. You know, this is in Asheville, North Carolina. They're pedestrian wayfinding. They actually have some like that and some like this. And so all of these things are different kinds of wayfinding. Because here is a list of what you need wayfinding for. Let's just see here. Okay, yep. Oh yeah, we need, okay. So we're going down this list. Yeah, we need wayfinding. There's no wayfinding to any of these that we could find. So let's keep going. Yeah, okay. Yep, here we go. There's that Glen Alps. You know, all of these things. By the way, you have more attractions within a 45-minute drive of downtown than any place in North America. But wait, There's more. I'm not done yet. What about all these? A lot of these, we still don't know where they're at. We've been driving around for a week and we still haven't found the Botanic Garden. I mean, where is all this stuff? Yeah. So, you know, I mean, this is why you need wayfinding. And we even have, we created this thing called the Destination Development Association. There's even a video about how to develop a wayfinding system. It should be the city's #1 priority. And even downtown, this is in Greenville, South Carolina. Notice this sign, it actually has business names because some of your best galleries, some of your best eateries are not on 3rd, 4th, or 5th. They're on those little side streets. So what they do is more to explore. This is all part of wayfinding. You know, I mean, this is in downtown Stockton, California. And so with all of this, you should know it is an investment, not an expense. Studies have been done that show that wayfinding increase retail sales and services by an average of 18%. So for all these people, we've been staying at the Hotel Captain Cook, and every day we see all the buses out in front, we see all the cruise ship people coming in, we see all the flight attendants coming in, we see all those people, they step out of their rooms, they go downstairs. They have no idea that 1 block away, there's 2 bike rental places. They have no idea that they can walk right over to the statue of Captain Cook a block away. They don't know what you have. There's no pedestrian wayfinding. So they're relying on front desk staff that can be sort of overwhelmed at times, particularly in the summer. And so finally, one other thing about wayfinding is if you had wayfinding, you would probably reduce the divorce rate by half. Just this week, I asked Apple Maps, take us to Sullivan Park. So, this is where it took us through a beautiful, beautiful neighborhood to this point. You know where I'm talking about? I'm going, so it doesn't even know Sullivan Park. I said, this isn't Sullivan Park. But we got to see the trail system here. And it didn't know Sullivan Park, so we did Westchester Lagoon. That's how we ended up right here. But I don't know if those people that live there really appreciate us all driving into their neighborhood where there's like 5 parking spaces. Because, once again, there's no wayfinding. But I'm assuming this is the Coastal Trail. So Friday's our day off. Could you please make it like today so we can go ride the Coastal Trail? I mean, I hear it's just epic. I mean, so we're starting to see these pieces of the Coastal Trail, and we're starting to go, oh my gosh, it goes by here, it goes by here, it goes by here. We have no idea where it connects into downtown. But we walked down the trail and we said, there's Sullivan Park, it's over there. But this is why you need wayfinding. And so, you know, tomorrow, 9 o'clock, that was just west, and that wasn't all of west. But we're going to talk about South Anchorage. We're going to talk about Midtown. We're going to talk about Girdwood. We're going to talk about Mountain View, which we didn't even know existed. You know, and the Muldoon area. I mean, all of that will be tomorrow. And then finally, and for me closing up for today, that's just a little teaser. But we ended up with 71. Actually, I think there's closer to 75. I keep adding them. These are suggestions that could make Anchorage better. And the #1 is you need a wayfinding system. That is #1. And there are federal transportation grants out there right now to get that done for you. But we want you to create a Destination Anchorage team. That would include community development, Visit Anchorage, AEDC. I mean, you name it. It's going to include the city, all of your major players. And so that is our goal. And then with this, it's about making something happen. These are suggestions that you could easily turn into recommendations. And a lot of these 71 are things that a local business could do to pull more people in the door. It's not all public sector. What makes your economy work is private sector. And so there's a lot that's geared to what business can do to pull people into town more. And amazing people don't just happen. They're here. They're in this room right now. But I got to tell you that the food in Anchorage is as good as anywhere in the world. Anywhere. And I'm not just talking about the seafood. I'm talking about your Thai, your sushi, all those other things. I mean, the food here is amazing. You know, the city of Anchorage is about the size of Spokane, and yet you have world-class dining. And if you're staying in downtown, there's no way we could eat at all the restaurants in even 2 weeks. We never had a bad dining experience here in the winter or the summer or when we were 3 years ago. You know, the recreation in and near Anchorage is just simply world-class. I mean, that's what makes Alaska an amazing place that is seen as exotic. You know, I mean, what you have, all within a short drive. I mean, you're the home base for the best fishing in the world, and yes, we did get to go down to Ships Creek and see examples of what Alice called combat fishing. And we're standing on the bridge going, there's a pink right there, there it is, toss your line over here. So we have a bunch of us on the bridge, you know, yelling down where to toss their hooks. I mean, that was pretty amazing to see. You know, I mean, you know, best wildlife viewing on the planet. We could just keep going on and on. Largest, busiest float plane base in the world. You know, sometimes I think you might sit there, and by the way, beauty around every corner. Downtown is beautiful. I wish the merchants would do a little better, but I think the city or the downtown partnership, whoever does all the hanging baskets and things, do an amazing job. I mean, you have the art scene here. It's just simply world class. For a mid-sized city, you're out competing major cities. Yes, we did get out to the Native American Heritage Center. That was amazing. I mean, whether it's visual arts, whether it's performing arts, it is literally world class. You know, and I mean, I can't even imagine a better trail system that where you have that's just within minutes of downtown. You know, from the fat tire biking in the winter to the street biking, you name it. It is absolutely fabulous. With that, I hope we'll see you tomorrow. By the way, that is a free event. And we'd love to have you all come out and join me tomorrow morning at 9, because this is one heck of an amazing place. What you have here is really, truly special. And having traveled up until COVID, 250 days a year, this is really, really a special place. And I don't get to say that everywhere that I go, hardly anywhere. And so with that, thank you so much for having me back, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very, very much.
Just one quick question.
Okay.
Let's give Roger another big round. That was a great presentation. And as Roger noted, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Tomorrow's the great presentation, the full-length thing. We're a little over time, but we do have a Q&A session. I want to get at least one big question that I'd like to ask Roger to maybe touch on right now. He'll probably touch on this a lot more tomorrow, but I think this is an important question. Roger, you have visited hundreds and hundreds of cities, and you've assessed hundreds and hundreds of cities. Is there one city or maybe two cities that really stand out to you that you've worked with that have done an amazing job of turning their city around from what they were dealing with and have really stood out that we could all look at and maybe look at as a comparative?
Well, we've worked in, you mentioned Oklahoma City. We've actually worked there. I think that some of the best cities for turnaround, Greenville, South Carolina, an amazing city that really turned itself around, did a really great job. I think that, Asheville, North Carolina is another one of those in the Blue Ridge Mountains. There's been several of those that have really done an amazing job. I think even Spokane, Washington, what it did with it was really a chopped up city with the river and everything. What they did there has been pretty amazing. Matter of fact, we just bought property there. So I think that's another good example. And there are many of them. that are mid-sized city. But I think one of the best examples I've ever seen is Greenville, South Carolina. Check it out sometime.
So I got to, we're getting crowd favorites now. We'll talk about those tomorrow. I just want to ask one little follow-on question.
Sure.
Was there one thing that was in common in each of those cities that you just mentioned that was an attribute that made them successful from a community point of view, not from an asset point of view, but
right,
from a community point of view? Was it a particular element of the community that led the charge? Was it, you know, what was it that they did that made them so, that helped them to be so successful?
What the number one revitalization thing that we have ever seen, and I'm probably the nation's biggest proponent of this, is year-round programmed public plazas. Go to Rapid City, South Dakota. They're downtown at 40% vacancies. Now there's none and there's a waiting list. I mean, they have Main Street Square that's programmed with activities and entertainment 300 days a year. So downtowns, you have all kinds of spaces. You don't need to create more plazas. You have all kinds of spaces. You need to program them. And the very best cities create a downtown living room where you can go and hang out. Never any cost. You can go there with big chess sets, Jenga blocks, tables and chairs. I mean, it's just a gathering place. And the very best cities have done that. They created a community living room. And by the way, it's for your locals first, because if you as locals don't hang out in your downtown, neither are visitors. They're going to go where you go. And so that's why you have to understand, always local first. And as visitors, we want to go where you go.
Many thanks to the outstanding sponsors that have made today's event possible, as well as our investor companies and partners that support AEDC all year long. And again, all the reports and information presented today can be found at aedcweb.com. The 2023, yes, we're already talking about next year, 2023 one-year forecast luncheon is scheduled for January 25th, 2023, right here in this room. Until then, thank you for your attention. Thank you for being here. Have a great day. Enjoy the sunshine.